Social Control in Asia and the Pacific. Chapter 24, Procedural Fairness and Control Effectiveness. Presented by Alejandra Contreras and Randy Vela. Procedural fairness. Procedural fairness begins with an assumption of innocence for criminal suspects before their conviction. It ensures that they be respected for their basic human rights, that evidence against them be properly collected, stored, examined, and presented to the court, and that they be afforded adequate legal and physical protection within the criminal justice. Control effectiveness requires that criminal offenders be apprehended and punished, that crime be deterred and contained, and that the general interest of society be protected and promoted. Both of these ideas conflict with one another. Control effectiveness may deprive individuals of certain human rights. Among societies in Asia and in the Pacific, there are differences in the organization of law. Public order, social control, and human rights standards are very different. Many countries still value common law versus civil law systems. The United States and China are a great example on how their views of criminal justice differ. The United States values privacy, civil liberty, freedom of speech, freedom of association, and freedom of movement. China, on the other hand, argues that the most important human right is survival rights, such as food and shelter and clothes. Another difference is that the United States would rather set free 100 murderers than kill one innocent person. China would rather kill 100 innocent people than set one free murderer. Population, economic development, social custom, and public mentality help shape a nation's criminal justice approach. The Magna Carta was one of the first documents that forced a king to limit his powers and respect certain legal procedures. The idea of due process can be traced to the Magna Carta. This important legal document has influenced many countries, especially the United States. The Constitution of the United States has the spirit of the Magna Carta's due process of law. The 5th and the 14th Amendments are great examples. Due process has two components: procedural law and substantive law. Procedural due process requires that an individual citizen be adequately notified of any charge against him, that he be necessarily afforded the opportunity to be heard at any court proceeding involving him, and that he should not be subject to cruel and unusual punishment. Procedural due process imposes restrictions on legal procedures so that fundamental fairness exists. Substantive due process places limits on what laws may attempt to do or prohibit. It protects rights to life, to property, to vote, to travel, to freedom from imprisonment, and to privacy. The United States has now moved into a new direction in the criminal justice system, known as the crime control model, which puts a premium on the value of speed. It requires that suspects who have truly committed a crime be convinced of entering a guilty plea. Across Asia and the Pacific, control and due process go hand in hand when countries greet international migrants. Procedural fairness contrasts with control effectiveness. In the real world of crime, deviance, and social control across Asia and the Pacific, there are understandably more difficulties and obstacles for control effectiveness to be achieved under the due process principle, or for the procedural fairness to be maintained with optimal control and orderliness. Procedural fairness requires a well-trained legal procession that cultured civil societies, as well as general social openness, economic accommodations, and political tolerance. There are very democratic peace, but there are a considerable number of governments that are still in the hands of dictators. Rules may be written, but are often pushed aside whenever leaders want to protect some interests. Procedures may be twisted or bypassed for the rich and powerful. Some areas in Asia and in the Pacific lack the necessary tools for a valid criminal system. These societies simply do not have a legal profession. Anyone can become a law enforcement agent, official. Official languages and legal protocols are rare. This may be due to the backward economy. If a society struggles to feed people, it cannot afford a legal system.
Countries have little more than normal governance. Resources were spent in ending civil wars or in combating different degrees of turmoil. A few of the nations were united in territories, but not in political, economic, or social fronts. Organized justice system is very important when running control operations when you want it to work and stay efficient. Lawmaking, law enforcement, administrative, justice, and education specialize in their own part of work and cooperate with other branches. Members have to perform job duties with how the rules are set. Every member or group completes duties with enough support. Everyone has a code of conduct they must follow, even though it's far from reality, all will obey. Mass media helps solidify as society develops. It brings in so much information to so many different situations with the outside. The more society learns from mass media, the easier it will be to portray everything they want them to believe. After all that, the public domain will be somewhat synchronized, but still diverse in the same way. Though they want everything to be united in a great number of nations, that's not always the case. Some people hurt and hate each other because they have different values and beliefs. In those countries, mass media has no control in what people are believing or how they see things in their life. For social control to be effective, it needs response from the economy, cooperation, from political views, and social cohesiveness. The lack of social cohesiveness is a common blame of tension with groups and fights between civilians, which then causes problems between different countries. Procedural fairness and control effectiveness is needing so many pieces to complete the puzzle. The country needs to be united, legal profession needs to be the best. The justice system needs to be well put together, and public domain needs to be in sync for it all to work. Civil liberties, procedural equity, and judicial impartiality are needed to have complex system of law. All countries need to be able to maintain everything being asked so that every form of life can be completed. The way to know if the two cases will work together will depend on political climate, economic conditions, and overall social environment. Cross-cultural communication has to be considered because people will believe in their own legal systems, value standards, and social content. Thank you for watching. watching our slideshow. The end. By Alejandra Contreras and Randy Vela. Have a good day.